I'm going to describe a couple of really over-the-top rhetorical analogies or models here to try to prove a point. And they're over the top, and they're totally something you could criticize and tilt at like it's a windmill. Consider a hypothetical world where everyone, absolutely everyone, received the same treatment. 100% of the population received the same preventative treatment to try to prevent something. But it's not perfect, so a certain percentage of people will have that medical problem happen. That means 100% of them could correlate to having received that preventative treatment. Preventative medicine causes disease. Now that sounds incredibly stupid. The majority of people in the United States, unless they're part of a very small part of the population that never ever uses toothpaste, 100% of the population eventually gets cavities because of one thing or another that happens. It's just less likely to happen if you diligently brush your teeth. Well, what's the point if I eventually get cavities anyway? You delay it till later. It's economically horrible and biologically deadly in some cases to get cavities and bad teeth. My front teeth were smashed in a bicycle accident, and this caused an escalating level of damage which would act as a place to foster even more of what causes the destruction of the teeth, acid. The bacteria that gets into a broken tooth or is simply stuck in food that you can't get out of your mouth because it's inside of a broken tooth, the acids produced are capable of etching away the outer surface of a tooth and making it decay. Period. This is a mechanism we understand. These teeth here were broken by an impact, a different one, or a scratch or something like that, depending on which one. These back here, I had wisdom teeth that came in abnormal and were paper-thin outside surfaces. They were deformed. And these front teeth were fractured or broken off entirely in a bike accident. But yeah, you're just making excuses for your moral corruption that caused it because pestilence, disease, and death are punishments by God for moral violations. We'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, yeah, 100% of the population that uses toothpaste has a reduction in cavities because they're cleaning their teeth. And also the fluoride helps a bit. But 100% of the people who have any cavities or tooth decay have at least brushed their teeth once. So we can say it causes it. The toothpaste causes the cavities because we have a nearly 100% population for it. 100% of the people who drink water die. I'm not doing this to be facetious. I'm doing this to be over-the-top ridiculous, but you can still make that inference. Now we're going to do another one. I have two fields. Let's say I don't own two contiguous hunks of dirt, so they're 10 miles apart. They have exactly the same bottom land content. The chemistry is the same. Let's make everything the same. And I even give them exactly the same fertilizer and plant them at the same time. And every year they're about the same. But one year I get a locust attack over here because it's just their pathway. And the locusts come through and eat the plants. And if I cut the plants down and just leave them sitting there, funguses and bacteria would go through and digest the plants because they're dead, and that's what decay is. It's bacteria and funguses and even bugs eating it. Okay? All right. So instead of acknowledging the locusts happened, a person decides to say, no, it's because you didn't use the right kind of fertilizer or some other excuse, and says, grasshoppers don't eat plants. And no, I'm not oversimplifying germ theory denial. I'm not oversimplifying people who constantly bring up, even though it's not really related, Pasteur. And some people who bring up, for some reason, Gandhi. Gandhi in the 1920s or whatever made a statement about preventative medicine being abominable and being just horrible. He had gone through seeing people get their legs cut off when they got an infection, so they ended up being an amputee from an infection. That was medicine to him. Then later on, which is not the part you get quoted back to you on websites that are pushing that statement about Gandhi saying it was barbaric to give people this preventative medication. He eventually said that he felt like he was, in not so many words, may have been responsible for thousands of deaths because he told parents not to give their children a preventative medication. And he said that he was wrong, and that he was ignorant, and that he was being stubborn. But you're not going to see that quoted on a website that wants you to believe in germ theory being a lie by Louis Pasteur to make money. So now we're going to bring up the website that was brought up to me. Now, I'm going to point out the 100% of the... If 97% of the people in a particular country receive the same preventative treatment to prevent something bad happening to them, and only 80% of the people who died showed that they had that preventative treatment, that's not the right ratio. It should be 95. In fact, because of the vast majority of people, and the progression we're dealing with, it should be higher than that. You should have almost a 100% rate of people who have received this preventative treatment, like this, dying anyway. Well, it's that 100% of the people who died also were people who received the preventative treatment at least once, because that's almost exactly 100% of the population. So why is there slightly more people who didn't receive the preventative treatment, and why is that being ignored? Well, that's cockamamie. Okay, there are literally people who will tell you that fluoride causes cavities. They've literally decided to say that. And they've even accused people of doing that when they were doing non-fluoride toothpaste. All toothpaste is evil. Why? And then they come up with some mechanism. This is like deciding that the locusts couldn't have caused the field to be eaten by locusts, even though you can see it. Terrain theory, the idea that the flower bed is what did it, not the bugs. When you point out that you can wash your hands with soap and water and it's a preventative method because it kills bacteria, they will come up with some cockamamie thinking about it to make it to where it's not about the damn disease. This is like the obstinate, that's the word that was used by Gandhi when he talked about himself, but the obstinance of saying Lee Harvey Oswald cannot possibly have shot anybody, we have to exonerate him. Because he was a duke who was tricked into shooting at Kennedy, but it can't be him, he never shot anybody. They will literally say two things at the same time that are contradictory. They have to say this over-the-top thing. Stephen Paddock did nothing wrong. Adolf Hitler killed no one. That sort of thing. Because it will inflame people and get attention. Constantly repeating that germs can't cause disease, and then immediately saying something right afterwards that amounts to germs exist, they cause disease, but no, which one of these are you saying? The competitors with Louis Pasteur came up with all sorts of it ought to work this way kind of arguments. Philosophical arguments. That they could argue to death. How many angels on the end of a pin? But not Pasteur, but other people did something simple. Or any of your methods claiming a terrain or any other thing other than germs working. And then they wouldn't respond. And you can actually find this in some proceedings where they wouldn't answer the fucking question. What are the outcomes? Well, that's not important. And if you're not aware of it, the overt statement by many scientists at the time, and even today, that they want to eradicate disease, flew in the face of a certain problem. People who believe that you're taking the weaponry away from God. God punishes people through plagues. He works in mysterious ways. He kills children. It's acceptable. You're denying his power by making it to where people have a body that can defend themselves against plague. And this runs very deeply. There is a group of people who call themselves Morgellons, victims or survivors. The word Morgellons is actually pseudo-corruption of the name of an area or a group of people in France that were called the Morgellons. And the disease of the Morgellons was a disease of the skin that made them itch, and they had patterns in their skin that looked like hairs. Under the skin, looked like fibers. And if you're not aware of it, this is one of the first diseases that was examined not for, vapors and evil spirits, but find out what the hell's causing it. And simply because they happen to be able to get lucky and get some scrapings from the tissue to try to find out, is there something in the skin attacking these people? Because someone noticed a pattern of movement very, very serendipitously. And there were microscopes available suddenly, and they could look under and say, oh, there is a mite, a tiny little animal, a bug. It's eating your tissue. And the trail it's leaving behind of the waste material looks like almost like a blood vessel or a hair. Yes, Morgellons, if you were going to call it that, really just means scabies. If you're not aware of it, scabies is maybe the first example of a disease that did not have an understood origin being analyzed to find the cause and effect. And that started a revolution of people saying diseases are caused by things, and let's find out what causes it and get rid of it. And other people sitting there, presumably with a Cro-Magnon facial expression, but it's God's will. You deny God. I don't want you curing anybody. And I'm not kidding about how dumb and simple that is. That's literally one of the arguments that was made against people curing and eradicating disease. And people don't feel comfortable talking about it. There is a tiny splinter of germ theory denialists that simply don't want you to have germ theory because it's a bit of information, knowledge, as a weapon to get rid of disease. They believe disease is God's will. That's a very tiny portion of the population. I'm sure it's not an undercurrent in every fucking private forum where they talk more freely about their motivations that I've infiltrated a couple of times. So let's get to this website being absolutely having a hard-on about Pasteur and germ theory. Pasteur is not really the source of germ theory. It's something people figured out. For the same reason, if bugs are attacking your garden, you don't blame it on the dog. Yes, in the human body and every other living thing, waste material builds up. Toxins, poisons, whatever you want to call them. And if your body doesn't purge them, they can build up and kill you too, or make you sick. And your immune system is a real thing, and it's needed to be there. I have an immune system that doesn't fight off a specific variety of bacteria properly, so I can get sick from it. Even though that's really the only thing our immune systems are adapted to is to fight bacteria. We're not good at fighting viruses, but we can be. This website also makes claims. Yeah, they're just reporting news No, they're not. They're pushing claims that viruses have never been isolated. That's a lie. It's not a mistake. It's not an error. It's a lie. Redefining what you decide it has to be by using 1880s methodologies by a specific person who then recanted them later because he found out he was wrong, and ignoring that. It's a lot like saying Gandhi said that medical treatment of children is barbaric, and then later on saying he felt like he was responsible for some of them dying because he said that stupid fool thing. So let's review lorphicweb. They're pushing germ theory denial and their Anatovax website. Period. No, this isn't a discussion. That's it. That's the conclusion. Next, it's so over the top, in your face, crapping on you while it's in your face, that it's not a discussion because they don't want it to be. They're not hiding what they are. They might state publicly they're not, but they are. And now a message to a person who aimed me at one of their articles. You're not the first one to bring up this particular article about it's 80% of the people are dying from something that was supposed to be prevented by a treatment. In an area where almost 100% of the population has received this treatment, this preventative treatment, and it's not perfect, I'm surprised it isn't 100% of them that are dying have had the treatment. And it should at least be a match, like it shouldn't be 80%, it should be 90%. That means there's something up with the counting. And yeah, the counting is not done by the supposed mainstream media. It's done by the people who are anti-vax. Now, my conclusion about the website. I don't want any more links to it. And it's eventually going to get banned on YouTube, even though it's brand new. Almost brand new. It's less than a year old. And that's it. But yeah, the website goes out of its way to misquote Gandhi, sort of like a Christian fundamentalist misquoting the Bible and then, practically jizzing when you point it out because they're expecting you to point out that they're lying about the Bible. almost like they have to because of the devil. The website is run by people who won't show their faces, and that's okay, but the bias is obvious. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.